Welcome back to The Thermostat with Jason Barger. If you're currently on a commute, a walk, or just a micro break in your day, glad you're making time to step back, to think, and to reflect on the next steps on your journey. I've never been more convinced. The best leaders and team cultures in the world are the ones that make time to step back and calibrate their thermostat. I hope today's conversation leaves you feeling grounded and inspired. Now let's dive into today's topic to engage our minds and hearts in order to authentically lead and create compelling cultures wherever we are in the world.
Welcome to everybody joining the next edition of a quarantine chat. I'm Jason Barger. I've been starting all these quarantine chats out with my first thought every single time is no matter where you are, I hope this message finds you well. I hope you and the people that you care about are safe and healthy. That's first and foremost. Our thoughts are with those who are suffering right now in the world, anybody who's ill, and then also certainly every single day I'm trying to wake up and think about the people that are on the front lines that are serving and supporting those in care. So every time we're doing these chats where all of us are in isolation and quarantine, we're hoping to start out our mindset, at least with being with those who are suffering and certainly those who are serving those that are in need. These are disorienting times, no doubt about it. These are disorienting times for all of us as humans, as individuals, certainly as families, and then as leaders and teams and businesses. These are disorienting times. And so I have never been more convinced in all these quarantine chats that I've been doing with people across the country and around the world, and then also organizations and leaders that I'm talking to and staying in touch with, is that the leaders, the teams, and the organizations that are aligned in their thinking around how are we going to navigate this from a leadership perspective, how do we think about our response, how do we align our minds and hearts and care for people in the midst of this, are going to be the ones that come out of this better and more prepared than the ones that certainly aren't able to do that or aren't aligned and certainly aren't able to care for the people around us. So I know from my own life, just speaking personally, I know that I'm waking up every single day, and I know that trying to align my mind and my heart are as important as ever. And so I'm trying to make sure that I start my day with that spirit of gratitude. What can I be appreciative of, even in the midst of challenging times and certainly a crisis for so many? I try to focus on what's within my control of all the things that are happening and all the stories and narratives that are going around in the world. What is within my control? And then what's my response going to be? What kind of response do I want to have as an individual, as a dad, as a husband, as a friend, and certainly for the clients and the work that I'm doing in the world? What is going to be my response? And as that, all of us are thermostats, what is that temperature that I want to set in the world? So the purpose of these quarantine chats, for those of you that are joining in or listening from afar or listening to this podcast as it'll be broadcasted out into the world, the purpose of this is to spread positivity in the midst of a time where we're in quarantine, we're in isolation, to make sure that we're spreading positivity. I want to add content and support to you that I hope this is a value add to your day and even gives you a few minutes to step back, to think about your mindset, to think about your life, and then certainly think about the team and the organization that you may serve. So I'm inviting guests in to join me on these little quarantine chats, people that I admire, people that I want to just check in with as friends, and also voices that I appreciate the way they think about leadership and culture as well. And so super excited to be joined today by Mark Henson. He is the founder of Sparkspace, the wonderful, creative, fabulous Sparkspace, and also the author of the book, A Superpowered Life. He's a dad, he's a husband, and he's a great friend of mine. So I'm excited to be welcoming in Mark. Mark, how are you?
I'm doing okay. Sitting in an empty space right now, and I'm unemployed. But other than that, things are okay.
these are disorienting times, no doubt. And yeah, you're sitting, I can see the backdrop of you in one of the wonderful creative spaces at Sparkspace, which usually are filled jam-packed with people and teams and companies that are doing some of the most important thinking and planning and connecting and working. And yet now we're sheltered in place. And so we are being asked to not gather. I'm wondering, we'll get to the business in just a second, but for you personally, like how are you handling this quarantine or these times of isolation? How are you kind of passing time and navigating your way through this?
My wife and I talk about this every day, that we just can't believe how fast the days go. We get up in the morning and it feels like, for me, she's super busy because she actually works for the governor, and she's super busy, and their whole team is doing an amazing job and communicating so well. And I get up every day. I'm like, what am I going to do today? And then somehow, like, before I know it, it's 7:00 p.m. And, it's the days have flown by. I've got a house full of people, my wife and myself and our 2 kids, our college age kids are home. And so, time flies and we stay busy, and I'm doing a lot of cooking, actually. More nice. Cooking than I've done in a long time. I'm usually responsible for most of the meals anyway, but now I feel like I actually have to cook because the kids are home and all that stuff. So
are you releasing some of that creative, super powered thinking into your cooking?
No, we eat the same thing over and over. We're not having like, hibachi night like some people are and pretending to be Japanese chefs,
All right. You
like some people I know.
The Instagram posts. All right. Yeah. We had a whole night where our kids were asking about, we wanted to go to a Japanese steakhouse. And so I said, all right, well, we're going to make one. And so I put on the chef hat and everything. And we had a fun little Barger family Japanese steakhouse night.
I saw you pelting your kids with shrimp.
Yeah. Well, there's some punishment going on around our house as well. So it sounds like, much like everybody, certainly it's such an interesting thing to me, fascinating how all of us, especially in the busy and frenetic lives that we lead, and certainly the businesses that we run, where so much of our days is so focused on that and rushing from thing to thing to thing. And oftentimes in that, old life, you used to always hear people say, man, if I only had the time, or, oh man, I just wish I had, my schedule was free, all those kind of things. But then when we find ourselves in a time where literally schedules are free and, or we have time, it's interesting to me to watch how challenging that is for us just as humans, let alone leaders and entire organizations, of then how do we navigate our way through that space and that time that we now have.
Well, and I think too, there's all that time and space, but as a business owner and as a leader, you're in crisis mode. You're in you're trying to fix it mode, something we can't even fix. And so you spend your day burning all this energy trying to figure out what can I do to either fix this or come out stronger or just do anything. I'm the whole reason I'm even here at my business right now is I'm cleaning. I'm cleaning up our storage areas. I'm doing all this stuff that we don't normally have a lot of time to do because right now it just gives me a weird sense of control to at least be able to clean up a closet or a storage area or the office. And I'm doing it by myself because none of my people are here, obviously, because we're all supposed to be staying away from each other. So I kind of sneak down here, once or twice a week to try to do something that feels productive, which I think is important. The first couple of weeks, I didn't do any of that. And that was pretty dark and it was pretty stressful. And I found that if I just do something that feels productive, it makes me feel a lot better. Now, I don't know if it's advancing my business or if it's even making anything stronger, but just even staying busy with something positive and productive, and even be able to, like the other day, I cleaned up one of our storage areas here, and I just stepped back and just admired my work for a couple of minutes, just like you do when you clean your garage or a closet at home or your basement. You just like the feeling of it, so you sort of live in it for a minute. And that was a really positive highlight for me in the last week.
No doubt. Well, I mean, so I think all of us, everybody's in that space of how do we fill the time, and the way that at least I've been trying to remind myself to think about it is it's not just about filling time. It's about then what are those things that are going to help us feel, if productive is the mode that you want to feel, or you know what, I want to feel restful coming out of this. So how am I going to rest? Or I need to feel creative right now because I got to do some forced innovation for the way that life and the crisis and the things that are out of my control, whatever way that is that you're feeling, instead of filling that time of saying, all right, well, what am I going to allow myself to have the space to think about? And when I think about you, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just saying, allow yourself the space to feel whatever you're feeling.
No doubt.
The first few weeks of this, I think so many people were trying to be so positive and trying to be, we're all in this together and let's beat this thing. And it was great on one hand, but on the other hand, I feel like I caught myself sort of squashing down all the fear and squashing down all those negative feelings, and they weren't going to go anywhere. They were going to come out somewhere, somehow, eventually. And I finally took a step back from that, and it just allowed myself to be in that dark place for like a week. It was tough. But by doing that, then I feel like I freed up a lot of energy that I was able to at least kind of sweep through some of that, let it kind of run its course. And now I actually feel way more creative and way more positive than I did the first week or two of this thing. But I think if I kept squashing it down, I would always feel like I was holding that back. So I would caution people to, be positive and be optimistic. But man, if you're scared, be scared. It's okay to be scared. If you're nervous, if you're frustrated, if you're angry, it's okay. Just be that. Let it run its course. Let it do its thing. And I promise, like, you feel better on the other side of that. I don't kick the dog or anything like that, or get crazy, but let it run through.
Allow yourself to be allow yourself to be human and to be real, and to understand that these are real emotions, and there is crisis happening in the world right now. There are people literally dying, and certainly the impact economically it's having on people and businesses, and that of course is real. So to allow ourselves to have those kind of emotions, I think is authentic and real. And where I think, and you probably noticed this with people too, is that I think where then we need to make sure that we infuse some of that positivity is we can't let fear and doubt and some of those other things own us, right? We can't let it hang for too long, where the reality is there's a crisis, and there are things right now in the world to be that we should be fearful of, and that we should, there are some doubts and things that help us in these times. But at the same time, I know I personally, I can't become fixated on that. I need to be aware of that and acknowledge that. And when I find myself kind of slipping into that moments, then what I've been reminding myself of, and I've been talking about this idea of courage is sitting in ambiguity, is then being able to, the courage for me at least, is when I don't have all the answers and I don't know what's coming and it's ambiguous and it's uncertain and unknown, is then it's in those moments where I'm not going to fully focus on doubt and fear, but I'm going to shift my eyes to, okay, well then what is the opportunity with what is within my control, and what is it that I want to give my mind and my heart to, even though I don't have all the answers to how this is going to play out. So, I'm interested in, so from your business standpoint, I mean, Sparkspace is an amazing business, and it has been an amazing business for like 20 years. Is that right? You just had your 20-year anniversary.
Yeah.
And so filling, again, providing these spaces for teams and companies to get out of the office where they come to these creative environments and allow themselves to be together and to do that important vision and creativity and connecting with each other and building as a team, getting aligned, all of that stuff. Now with this shelter in place, I got to think that you're business-wise, that you're in that challenging space. Tell us a little bit about just business-wise, what's keeping you up at night, kind of what are you thinking about, but also, what's anything to share about how at least you're approaching that at Sparkspace?
Well,
I know that's a big question.
Yeah, like a lot of businesses, you've sort of tapered down a bit, and then the restaurant industry is able to kind of limp along with their carry out and all of that. Our business went from like going full speed to zero, like literally like the day all this stuff kind of finally locked down, like everything stopped for us, and it is stopped for the foreseeable future, which is terrifying, to be honest with you. Because we have rent. This space ain't cheap. I'll put it that way. And we have employees that we care about, that we want to take care of, and we can't right now. And so it is a little terrifying. And when I look at the timelines that they keep presenting, and the fact that we are in the gathering business, we're probably going to lag behind the rest of the world getting open and back to work. Just like the sports and entertainment industries are going to be lagging way behind, probably way more behind than we are, for those huge gatherings like sporting events and concerts. And I just saw the other day the Buckeye Super Country Fest or whatever it is canceled already this summer, and that bums me out because I wanted to go. So looking at that super long timeline, I honestly don't know what it means for my business. So I'm just right now just trying to prep by doing everything I can and gathering all of the information from credible, reliable sources, trying to line up whatever kind of financing and funding that I might want to take advantage of. It doesn't mean I will or I have to, but just being able to create sort of those plan B and plan C type scenarios is really helpful, as it kind of calms me down, first of all, to know that there are options and alternatives. But I'm trying not to look out more than 90 days at a time. I do kind of once in a while venture out into the 6 months to 12 month time frame. But right now, just what's going to get us to that 90-day mark? It's sort of like climbing Mount Everest. I saw somebody speak a couple years ago at the LeaderCast event that we host every year, and she had climbed Mount Everest. And she said, when you get up toward the peak, you literally, like, it is so hard to keep moving that you just look at like whatever you can look at in front of you, like that rock that's 10 feet away. And it might take you 20 minutes to go 10 feet, but you get to that rock and then you find the next rock and you look at the next, scraggly thing sticking out of the ground.
The next point.
The next point, and they're not very far away. You're not worried about the peak. You're not looking at the peak. You're like, for me, I'm not looking a year from now or 6 months from now or 12 months from now. I'm looking, how do we get through the next 90 days? And that's a rolling thing. So every week I look at it like, okay, we're still on this 90-day time frame. What's it going to take to kind of get us through the next 90 days? And investigating every scenario possible. I mean, I was even half joking with my wife that like, maybe I should go out and get a job right now. I don't have any income coming in, but in a weird way, that actually felt good to me to even consider that as a possibility. Like, there are options. You put yourself at risk doing that right now too. So you got to weigh some of those risk factors and options. But I think there are always options. And when we hit crisis like this, at first it feels like all your options have been taken away. And then when you breathe for a minute and you take a step back, you start realizing, okay, this could go a lot of different ways. And there are a lot of different options. Everybody keeps, kind of nudging me to go virtual and do your training virtually. And that's okay. And that is an option. It's actually my least favorite of all the options, to be honest with you. While I love the fact that we can talk like this and we can connect virtually like this, I hate it as an overall medium because I am a face-to-face, high-fiving, hugging kind of person. And that's what I want to do. I'm in the gathering, interaction, face-to-face, human, high-touch business. All this virtual stuff, fine, great. We'll do what we need to. But man, I want to get back, and I fully anticipate getting back to being in person, close proximity with people. It may take a little while, but we're going to get back there. And that's the business I want to be in. Never wanted to be in the virtual training business. Still don't. And I'll do what I need to do. But I also think that there is so much available and so much out there that it's going to be super hard to compete in that space.
Yep.
Not that I'm defeatist about it, but I also think that there's so much out there for free. It's going to be hard for anybody to actually make money in the virtual space for a while. I think as this calms down and like some of the true sort of players will be able to pull some stuff together that are valuable money-wise to people. But right now, it seems not impossible, but it seems unlikely to make money in the short term on that.
Yeah, I mean, every business right now, unless you're selling toilet paper or booze, those things are in high demand. Unless you're doing that, every business right now is struggling. And what I hear you working through, by the way, in your mind, which all of us are, is that what I was talking about, that courage of sitting in ambiguity is when, again, which is totally human and normal for us to then have fear and doubt creep in. Because I think ambiguity tries to distract us with fear and doubts. And so it's a normal thing. But what I hear you saying is like when we start to position ourselves and allow ourselves to actually step back and then sit in that ambiguity and begin to look around, we start to then be able to see that there are opportunities. Now, there might not be the opportunities we once had or the exact same opportunities, but there are more opportunities around us than we know. And also, we have a chance to liberate ourselves from old narratives and or find new narratives. Now, again, it may not be what you want, like your comment of you can go get a job. You're right. Like Mark Henson is a more than employable person. So there are opportunities like you can go get a job. Now, it may not be what you ultimately want to do, but create space to be liberated from this idea that there are only a couple of paths. There are actually more paths available to all of us. And so in this time of kind of what I refer to as forced innovation, it's forcing us to actually have to look at those things and see how do we do things differently or newly, or if we're committed to doing it the way we used to, of being willing to sit and be patient for that time to pass, which that Mount Everest image is so great that you just shared. And I think about Andy Politz, who's actually a Columbus guy who's been on a number of Everest expeditions. And similarly, he said, when you get up to a certain elevation on Everest, it takes 4 breaths to accomplish anything. 4 breaths to even take a step, and then 4 breaths take another step. And so you think about the time and space we're in right now as individuals, and then certainly as teams and organizations. We like a 3-month, 6-month, 9-month, year projection at this point is, day to day that's changing. So we got to take those 4 breaths and then take that next step and navigate our way through it, and also care for the people around us. Yeah.
This is the second big crisis that we've hit because we've been around long enough to have survived the recession. And, at that time we had 8 employees. We'd had our best year ever up to that point. And we went down, our business dropped 40 or 50%. We lost all but 2 of the employees, myself and one other person, kind of hung around for an extra year, just working hard together to kind of make sure that we could cover everything. But, 6 people left and never came back. And somehow, we made it through that. But one of the things that did it for me at that time was I was in that same sort of dark place, like, oh my gosh, this thing I've worked so hard to build might go away and I might not survive. And of course you think as a business owner too, you're like, well, not only do I have all this, but like I've personally guaranteed this rent and I've personally guaranteed everything that's here. Like I could actually lose my house. I have a lot to lose, And so at that time I just thought, well, okay, what do I really need? And I decided I needed a plan B. And so I thought about it. It's like, if all this went away today, where would I go apply for a job tomorrow? And at the time I thought, I always wanted to work at the Container Store, Crate and Barrel, or Home Depot. And I was like, okay, here's my plan B. And like you said, those wouldn't have been forever jobs for me, but I was like, I think I could get a job at one of those places and I could probably get some food on the table and be okay for a while. working in one of those places. So that became my plan B. And that relaxed me more than anything when I was able to just take that step back and say, okay, we've got choices. We got alternatives. Yeah. And again, they may not be ideal. They're not careers. They're not lifetime kind of choices, but it is something to relieve the pressure valve for sure.
So yeah, absolutely. And so all of us, again, there's more available around us, not only resources and the things that we're all learning about of, okay, what can I apply for? What do I qualify for? All those kind of things that again, in the midst of crisis and challenging times, it's easy to get sucked into the fear and feel like we have no options, but to take a deep breath and to step back and to say, okay, what are those options? And what am I going to allow myself some space to try to go on that journey to figure out? If there was an entrepreneur, another entrepreneur, somebody who's a part of a huge corporation right now that the fear is that they're going to be downsizing. If you're somebody who was just in the midst of a job search or changing jobs, or, a family that's just, had just put their house on the market, or, whatever those challenging situations are, what would be a couple of just tips that you would share with them of navigating themselves, their mindset at this present time to take those 4 breaths and take the step? What would be some tips you'd share?
I was actually reminded of this morning, and I shared it on some of my social media about, I had a counselor, shrink. I call him my shrink, my former shrink. I used to go in and talk to him, and he would catch me sort of living and telling these fear-based stories. These scenarios of like, and I would be convinced this is the way it is. Yep. With a relationship or with my job or with, whatever. And they were these fear-based stories of what if this really happens, this could be horrible, all of that. And I've been obviously catching myself doing that a lot lately again, like a lot of people are. And his reaction when he would catch me in one of those stories was he'd like cock his head, like do this weird thing with his eyebrow, and he'd say, or? And that was it, and I'd be like, my reaction every time was, damn it, he busted me again. That's right. Living in these fear stories. And so I think that's a really actually great mechanism to use. I catch myself using it now. I say that he beat it into me. So like now it's sort of automatic. When I catch myself really participating a little too much in one of those fear disempowering stories, I stop myself and I say, or what else? What else could it be? What's another possibility? And you can always come up with one. That's the miracle of that little technique is there's always another story you can tell yourself. There's always another possibility you can think of. Sometimes it feels like you can't, but there always is. So just even taking that moment to just step back, realize you're living in a story, choose a different story, and there's a million that you could write or choose for yourself that are more empowering than where you're living right now. And then the other thing is just is maybe map out that plan B. Like, okay, let's imagine the worst thing happens.
Yep.
I've talked to entrepreneurs about this before where they're all stressed out about things imploding, or even people that are employees of other companies that are worried about losing their job or changing careers. They want to quit and they want to go do something else. And I always tell them, like, are you going to let your family starve? And they're like, well, no. I'm like, there you go. Like, you will figure out a way.
That's right.
You'll figure it out. Like, yep. It may not feel like it at this moment, but like, you're not going to let your family starve. You're probably not going to lose your house. They're not going to come repossess your car, because you're going to work your ass off to try to figure out how to not make that happen. Yeah. And by doing that, you might actually end up in a better place. You might land in the right spot for you. You might be able to figure out ways of using your superpowers in ways that you're not doing now, which is the other thing that I'm constantly coaching people on, which is find those things you're passionate about. Find those talents that you have that nobody else has. Figure out a way to use them. Yeah. That's kind of what I finally came to in this situation here is I've got resources. I have this book. I've got a basement full of them doing absolutely no good. So the other day I just started giving them away. I started posting last week. I posted a couple of times. I posted this week. Like, if your team wants a free book, I will send one out to your whole team. literally just pay the shipping and I will ship them out. And I have 300 books to send out today. And like, that feels good. You know, like I'm not making any money on it. Like I literally am charging for the shipping, the media mail shipping, and a padded envelope. And I'm actually losing a little bit of money in the process because I failed to factor in a couple of things, but it's like, screw it, I've already published it. But it's all good, and it's going to help people, I hope, and get clean out my basement a little bit. I'll still have boxes and boxes and boxes. So if anybody wants one, I'll even extend that offer. If anybody wants one, when this turns into a podcast and if they're listening later on, just email me. I'll send you a free book. So.
All right. Yeah. Mark at Sparkspace.com. Hey, so let me remind you of a couple things just as we wrap up here for anybody listening, but certainly my buddy, Mark, you know, as we're talking, like, here are some things at least that are going through my mind that I think relate to everything that you're talking about, and maybe our words of encouragement along the way. One is, and some of these messages are coming out in the next few weeks on podcasts and videos and things that I've just been thinking about and I want to share with the world. But one of the things that I predict for the future, and I know it's who knows how far out, social distancing and physical distancing, we don't know how long that's going to last. And certainly for somebody who's in the meetings industry and having people join together in space, that's a scary thing. But let me tell you something I'm certain of. There will be a time in the future that there is power in congregation.
Absolutely.
There is power in congregating, human beings coming together and being in the same space together. And so I don't know when that is, but there will be a time where there's going to be power to congregate. In the meantime, one of the options we have is this. And what I've found is it's not the same, as you said earlier, as being in person, the power, the energy of being there around people and congregating. But virtually, there is a way, and fortunately, great technology that exists for us to connect and engage the minds and hearts of people like the way we are doing. And so we got to find ways to do that. And the other thing I'm convinced of is that we have more options than we ever know. And there are paths that are ahead of us that if we're willing and to dare and to lean into those, that there are going to be new ways. And either we can choose to then take action, which was what you were just saying. I mean, I had a client just recently where I was saying to him, okay, so what's the game plan? What's the plan? It doesn't mean you have to have it all figured out, but what's the plan? And then what's the next action? And then he looked at me and he was like, it's that easy, right? And I was like, it's that easy. You just got to do the next thing.
Yeah.
And then we'll huddle again and we'll decide what the next thing is, but you got to just do this next thing. And so whoever's listening, whatever that next thing is for you, whatever that is, then I encourage you to take that step. So there is power in congregation. We are able to do this virtually and engage the minds and hearts of people no matter where we are. And there is a next step, whatever that may be for you. There is, and sometimes it's as simple as that. So we're almost at our time, so I want to be respectful of that. Fortunately, this is being made into a podcast and going to be amplified even further into the world. Mark, I appreciate you. I thank you for being a part of this. You are a wonderful person, but also have had a wonderful business that has served so many, and I know that there's other great things to come. So anybody listening, I hope you will do your part in helping to spread positivity and care and leadership, because that's what the purpose of even this gathering. I hope this has added value, even just for a few minutes into your day. Whenever you're listening to this or accessing this, I encourage you to hang in there. Keep checking back at Jason V. Barger, at all my social platforms, Jason V. Barger, because there's going to be more things like this that are going to be shared, more messages that hopefully add value to where you are. And at the podcast, The Thermostat with Jason Barger, you can find that where you find podcasts. This exact conversation and others that hopefully add value out in the world are going to continue to be shared, because that's the way at least I'm choosing to approach this. I can't control everything that's happening in the world, but what I can control of is what's my response going to be, what is the temperature I want to set. And I'm choosing to set it that connecting with wonderful people. I'm choosing to be positive, even in the midst of being aware and acknowledging challenges. And I'm also choosing that there are options and actions and ways that we can care and lead for others. So Mark, thank you so much for gathering, and anybody out there listening, thanks for taking a few minutes to be together.
Well, thanks for having me, and miss seeing your face in our space. And I know we'll see it again, and you'll have that positive energy live and in person. And I look forward to those days, and hopefully they're sooner than later.
They're coming at some point. I don't know when, can't predict it, but I know that there will be a day, and I'll be excited to be in the Sparkspace space again, and also to be a part of some of those gatherings, because there's going to be power in congregation. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast, and I hope the messages and questions stimulate positive change along your path. As always, if these messages resonate with you and add value to your life, I hope you'll help amplify them throughout the world. Please rate, comment, and share on whatever podcast or social media platform you're using. And share this podcast with the people in your life or work who should be part of these conversations. That way, this spirit does, in fact, spread. If these messages or developing leaders and culture would be helpful to your organization, or you have a question or comment about this podcast, please contact us at jasonvbarger.com. And remember, we all are ambassadors for the culture we want to create in our life and work. We have to own the vision we want to be a part of. The future of leadership is you, is me, is us. Be a thermostat.